a new environmental threat along California's coast.
People probably mistake them for a pebble, for a grain of sand.
We learned tiny plastic pellets called nurdles are washing up near Monterey Bay and entering the food chain.
It can end up on our plates and in our stomachs.
Now, scientists want to know where they came from.
Save Our Shores is shipping bundles and bundles of these for analysis.
Expect original reporting from KPIX5 News. Expect more.
I'm Ashwin Ladva of the Ladva Law Firm. I've spent more than 15 years representing injured parties in the Bay Area. I know how to put an end to the games insurance companies play and how to obtain the maximum results for your case. I will ensure that you will be compensated for your medical expenses, missed work, and pain and suffering. Get a free evaluation today.
The Ladva Law Firm, 415-692-4504.
NCIS LA, Monday at 10 on KPIX5.
Good morning and welcome to MOSAIC. I'm Rabbi Eric Weiss and I'm honored to be your host this morning. We'd like to invite you into a serious conversation this morning about domestic violence, and in particular, domestic violence in the Jewish community. I'd like to introduce you to Naomi Tucker, who is the executive director of Shalom Bayit. She's the founding executive director of Shalom Bayit, and Zafira Derblick-Milea, who is the youth program coordinator, also Shalom Bayit. Welcome, Naomi and Zafira.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
So let's just jump in and talk a little bit about what Shalom Bayit is and why is domestic violence such an important topic of conversation for us in general in our culture, but in particular in our Jewish community?
Sure. Well, Shalom Bayit started 24 years ago because although there was a robust domestic violence movement in the United States, we noticed that Jewish women were not accessing services, and that, in fact, in the Jewish community, people weren't talking about the issue and really sort of bought into the myth that the Jewish community doesn't suffer from those problems. And we knew from domestic violence statistics that in fact isn't true, and that 1 in 4 women in their adult lifetime may be a victim of domestic violence, regardless of their ethnic background or religion or where they live in the world. And so we wanted to be able to figure out how we could get the message out to those women and how we could help them. And that's why we started a program specifically in our faith and cultural community to be able to talk about the issue and break through the denial about abuse in our community and be able to have a communal conversation so that we could make it safe for women to come forward and get help.
You know, in a moment we're going to ask Zafira to talk about a particular youth program activities that Shalom Bayit does, but Shalom Bayit's history has a very unique aspect to it in that it began, if I remember correctly, as a women's collective in the East Bay. And I'm wondering, since you're the founding executive director, if you can talk just briefly about that history. I know it's vast, but just in a couple of sentences.
Sure. We actually started around a kitchen table in Foster City on the peninsula, where I was working at a battered women's shelter and not seeing Jewish women coming forward. And we actually worked as an all-volunteer group and then moved to San Francisco in the early 1990s, where we just started by going to Jewish community groups and synagogues and talking about the issue to anyone who would listen. And eventually, so many women were coming to us for help, and so many Jewish groups wanted us to come and speak that we had too much business, unfortunately, to be a volunteer collective anymore. It's about 8 years into the organization. We actually looked for funding, hired a professional staff, and opened our main office, which is now based in the East Bay. So now we have both East and West Bay offices, and we provide services in all 9 counties to both Jewish and non-Jewish women who are survivors of domestic violence. And we also, I'd love to have Zafira talk about our youth program, because in addition to helping women who are in abusive relationships or who have been, we ultimately want to be able to teach young people the skills to not have to become our clients in the first place. So in 2002, we started our youth program called Love Shouldn't Hurt. And then our third program is our community outreach and education, which is really all about engaging the community in a broader response to domestic violence and providing the training and education so that everybody can be on board with the societal changes that need to happen in order to create a world where we don't have intimate partner violence at home.
Safira, what a beautiful segue to what you do with Shalom Bayit.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll mention one of the reasons that Love Shouldn't Hurt, I think, is so well received is you asked why is this such an important issue and why are people bringing us in. And one of the things I often say when I first start my educational workshops is because we know that 1 in 4 women in their lifetime will be affected by domestic violence, what that actually means is all of us are affected. Because even if I myself am not that 1 in 4, I'm going to know one of those women. And so when I walk into a classroom, so my work, as Naomi mentioned, the name of our program is Love Shouldn't Hurt, and we work with middle school students starting actually as young as 6th grade, talking to them about what it looks like and what it means to have a healthy friendship and what it means to be a good friend. Because we know that understanding friendships in a healthy dynamic and what that looks like absolutely impacts future dating relationships. And then we work with high school students, college students, parents, as well as educators, and teaching them how to recognize what is domestic violence, how to prevent it, how to support a friend, and one of my main passions, teaching about healthy boundaries, because we see understanding where are lines that we're not okay with, where we wouldn't want someone to cross in a relationship is an extremely important part of preventing abusive relationships. Being able to recognize those subtle types of abuse that often start early on in a relationship, but if we haven't learned those warning signs and the tools, we may not recognize the relationship until we're much further into it, and it's much harder to leave a relationship at that point.
Zafira and Naomi, we're going to take a quick break and come back to MOSAIC in just a moment. Please return to this important conversation about domestic violence. Good morning and welcome back to MOSAIC. I'm Rabbi Eric Weiss, and honored to be your host this morning. We've started a wonderful and very important and serious conversation about domestic violence in general and domestic violence in particular in the Jewish community. So we'd like to reintroduce you to Naomi Tucker, who is the founding executive director of Shalom Bayit, and Zafira Derblick-Malaya, who is Shalom Bayit's youth program coordinator. And we should say that Shalom Bayit is a Hebrew phrase that means peace in the home, and within a Jewish cultural context, it's a kind of play, if we can use that word, on the importance of a Jewish value that we have in general, and in that way using that particular Jewish value to apply to the issues of domestic violence within Jewish families. So,
well, it's really our vision that every woman and child have the right to have peace in their own home, and that is a basic foundation of any healthy community, to be able to be safe in your own home.
And so, Naomi, what have you seen over the years in terms of community changes in response, changes in community impact, changes in the ways in which the community perceives this issue and is willing to talk about this issue?
Well, I think there's been an enormous change. In the beginning, when we started, nobody would even talk about domestic violence in the Jewish community. And now I think the Jewish community here in the San Francisco Bay Area is very much aware of the existence of domestic violence. People don't question it as much, and that actually makes it much safer for women to come forward. And when they do turn to a friend or a clergy person or a teacher to get help, that person is much more likely to believe them and connect them to supportive environments. We also have an active 80-member Rabbinic Advisory Council now with so many clergy who are supporting our work in many ways, including speaking about it publicly within their congregations. And I think that really changes the communal conversation about how we think about domestic violence and makes it possible for us to both change the behaviors and also encourage women to come forward if they do need help. So I think that the community response has completely shifted over time, and my hope is that if that keeps going in that direction, that someday we'll live in a world where people really are safe in their own homes.
Yes, and Safira, whenever we talk about an important issue like domestic violence, there's such an important aspect of the aspect of impact in education that has to pay attention to the sensitivity of particular cultural frames. And so I'm wondering, in your work with youth, what are the cultural Jewish value frames that you pay attention to in this particular way with domestic violence?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that makes our work unique is looking at this issue. How can we take our Jewish values, our Jewish traditions, and use it toward healing, our women's program, as well as prevention? So one of the pieces that I do with youth that I love is taking ancient texts, I mean thousands-year-old texts, even text from the Torah, from the Bible, and looking at how can this text apply to our day-to-day life interactions. For example, this idea that we're all created in God's image, that each person deserves to be treated equally, and looking at that and getting youth to think about how can I take this text and look at it, how it applies to my relationships today with friends, with peers, with romantic relationships. And that's a big piece of our work as well in the women's program.
And when you use the word text, you're referring to an excerpt from the Bible or an excerpt from other Jewish sacred texts like the Talmud or
yeah, one of my
ethical...
Exactly. Talmud from ancient Jewish scholars. Rabbi Hillel is someone we quote a lot. One of my favorites, talking about the Golden Rule, is one of his famous quotes, and talking about the entire Torah is all about how we should treat each other equally. The rest is just commentary, go and learn. But he's telling us the really core Jewish value is that we are all deserved to be treated equally.
And can you talk a little bit about how you see changes in the youth that you work with?
Well, one of the tangible the places where I really see change is when I have the opportunity to work with youth over the years. So for example, often I'll reach students in 6th grade and do a follow-up program with them in 7th grade, 8th grade, and keep going in high school. And I have teens come up to me afterwards and say, you know, because of your workshop, I realized that the relationship I was in was not healthy, and I was able to get out of it. And now I'm supporting my peers in having healthy relationships. Those are the moments where I go, yes, this is the work that I'm meant to be doing.
You know, you remind me how important self-reflective learning is. And I'm wondering if, for the youth that you work with who come to that self-reflective insight, do you have a sense of how the act of self-reflection affects them in other parts of their life outside of, say, the range of domestic violence and healthy relationship issues?
Yeah, I think giving young people the opportunity to learn skills like how to communicate, how to have difficult conversations, how to be uncomfortable and get through it are skills and tools they will use in all parts of their life. I always say to teens, now math, I think it's very important, and sometimes you don't realize how you're going to use it day to day. Just like talking about healthy relationships. Even though we're focusing on peer relationships, intimate relationships, I use the skills that I teach in my relationships at work, in talking with people on the street. You know, this work really applies to so many different parts of our lives, and so I see it as beneficial to youth, not just in their peer relationships, but in all parts of their life.
You know, what you're saying I think is so important, because there's so many aspects of human life where we must focus on a particular aspect and then ultimately come to understand from that particularism what the holistic, more universal issues are as they apply to a healthy lifestyle, no matter what people are dealing with in particular.
Right, so domestic violence is really about power and control, and one person maintaining that control systematically in a relationship. And so when we teach people the tools to prevent abuse in their lives, we're actually teaching them the tools to empower themselves and to have autonomy in their lives, and to value independence, and to not allow themselves to be controlled by another person. And similarly, we're teaching young people the value of how they have skills in a relationship to not not do that to harm someone else also. And those are skills that we absolutely then can apply in our lives to be happier, healthier human beings. There are also lots of other issues that are related. So while we are out there doing prevention work with youth around dating violence, of course we're also giving them the tools to prevent sexual assault and child abuse and other kinds of issues that might come up in their lives, because they're the same basic tools. And so we think that that's really important in terms of preventing all kinds of abuse.
Naomi, Zafira, thank you so much. We're going to take another quick break. We're going to say goodbye to Zafira and welcome another guest from Shalom Bayit with Naomi when we return to Mosaic.
A new environmental threat along California's coast.
People probably mistake them for a pebble, for a grain of sand.
We learned tiny plastic pellets called nurdles are washing up near Monterey Bay and entering the food chain.
It can end up on our plates and in our stomachs.
Now, scientists want to know where they came from.
Save Our Shores is shipping bundles and bundles of these for analysis.
Expect original reporting from KPIX5 News. Expect more.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
You can help children in low-income neighborhoods get the help they need to stay in school and go on to college.
I Have a Dream Foundation provides mentoring, academic help, and tuition to make this dream come true.
Learn how this program helps students build life skills while increasing high school graduation and college participation rates. Visit IHaveADreamFoundation.org and find out how you can be a part of the dream. CBS Cares.
This is the Secretary of State.
It's everyone's worst nightmare.
What does jihadists want with explosives in Pakistan?
A new Madam Secretary. Then,
they sent us funeral flowers.
wedding bells.
We're here.
Are ringing. And alarm bells.
Can we talk for a minute?
Can we talk later?
Are going off.
Why is everything always secrets in this family?
Only 3 episodes remain.
This is in case we die tomorrow.
Oh my God.
A new Good Wife after Secretary CBS tonight.
Good morning and welcome back to Mosaic. We're in the middle of a wonderful and very important conversation about domestic violence and about domestic violence in particular in the Jewish community. I'd like to reintroduce you to Naomi Tucker, who is the founding executive director of Shalom Bayit, and introduce you now anew to Sarah Rohde, who is the coordinator of counseling services at Shalom Bayit. Welcome back, Naomi, and welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having us.
Sarah, can you let us know who calls Shalom Bayit and what a coordinator of direct services, a coordinator of counseling services does Shalom Bayit?
Sure, absolutely. So we get calls from a wide variety of mostly women. There are some male victims of domestic violence as well, but statistics show us the vast majority are women. Women call us whether they are in an abusive relationship thinking about getting out, or sometimes they've been out of a relationship for years and are now processing the trauma and needing support because of some of the repercussions, whether they're financial or related to other legal issues in their lives. Most of the women that call us are Jewish, but we do serve women from all faith communities and women who are not affiliated religiously. Some of the women who call us have children and are looking for help for their whole family, and others are single individuals. And so we see people from kind of all over socioeconomic status and from all over the Bay Area.
You know, you mentioned children. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about what you see from your perspective about the impact of domestic violence in particular on children?
Yes, so children are really impacted by domestic violence. And actually, women cite the #1 reason that they leave an abusive relationship is for the sake of their children's well-being, but it's also the #1 reason that women choose to stay, because they really want their children to have two parents, and they believe they're doing the best for their children. But what studies show is that children have, especially when they're young and they're learning so much about the world, it can be very dangerous to be in an environment where what's taught is that your trust can be violated, that someone that loves you can also hurt you, and to be under the level of chronic stress of having that kind of fighting in the home. So it's a sad story for children, but also the good news is that children are incredibly resilient. So when they have modeled to them that their parent is leaving and no longer tolerates the abuse, and when usually mom gets help and often the children need therapy, they can heal. They can learn that violence isn't a normal thing in relationships. And they're young enough, their brains are still absorbing new information. So it's a great time to focus on intervening and helping the whole family unit.
And we live in a part of the country in the Bay Area with just a vast diversity. So does Shalom Bayit provide services no matter the profile of the abuser?
Yes. So I guess I'm wondering what you mean about the profile of the abuser?
Well, sometimes people are in domestic violence situations with a same-sex relationship,
yes,
or with a relationship with somebody who may or may not literally be a married partner or even a domestic partner. So an abuser can be a member of one's family across the board, or an abuser can be a friend, or some other adult in one's life.
So we primarily focus on intimate partner relationships, which does indicate dating, married, having a child together, having once dated, having once been married. We will provide support and some counseling or direction for anyone who's calling us about abuse in any form from anyone in their family unit or their community. And we're very LGBTQ friendly. We're a really diverse staff. We're open to different ethnic groups. We speak a couple different languages on our staff, so we try and be welcoming for anyone who gives us a call.
Thank you, Sarah. Naomi, we need to take a quick break, but before we do, can you talk just very briefly about what I think is naturally on people's minds when they hear about a service like Shalom Bayit and domestic violence, which is the fee structure?
Oh, all our services are free, and that's incredibly important because battered women often don't have access to finances. Even if they have a job, their abuser is probably controlling the income. Financial control, just like physical violence or emotional abuse or other forms of isolation, is a common part of the pattern of abuse. So it's extremely important that finances not be a barrier for women getting services. So women can come to us, and all our services are free, and they can know that they can get whatever help they need for as long as they need, and we will walk with them all the way.
Wonderful. Naomi and Sarah, we're going to take another quick break and return to Mosaic in just a moment.
Women paying more than men for the same products, from deodorant to clothes. A push to make the pink tax illegal. A mayor declares war on homeless encampments. We found more tents popping up because of an online campaign by well-meaning donors. Plus, California nuts worth millions. Now a plan to stop thieves from stealing them. Expect original reporting from KPIX 5 News. Expect more.
There are oceans and rocks, places where fish swim and birds fly. History is made, art is created, things happen that should always be remembered. Heroes emerge, a woman sets people free, a man makes light, a leader steps forward. It can be a place, a feeling, a state of mind. So get up, get out there, and find your park.
CBSN. CBS plus N as in news.
Welcome to CBSN. We are streaming live.
Or N as in right now. Or newest video.
You can see the security.
Or network of global reporters. Or never worrying about credibility or trust. Or better yet, not paying for any of this. CBSN. Online, on your connected TV, or any mobile device. Anywhere, anytime. CBSN. CBS News. Always on.
Good morning and welcome back to Mosaic. I'm Rabbi Eric Weiss and honored to be your host. We are ending a really important and lovely conversation about domestic violence and domestic violence in particular in the Jewish community. So I'd like to reintroduce you to Naomi Tucker, who is the founding executive director of Shalom Bayit, and Sarah Rohde, who is Shalom Bayit's coordinator of counseling services. Welcome back, Sarah and Naomi. Sarah, can you talk a little bit more about the concrete services that Shalom Bayit provides people?
So the first service we provide is our phone counseling line. It's not a 24-hour hotline, but during business hours, we try as hard as we can to answer the phone, and anyone who's answering the phone is able to provide guidance, emotional support, and some kind of concrete planning for next steps when someone is calling us. And then two of our main counseling programs are really lovely. We have support group services, both in the East Bay and throughout the rest of the Bay Area on a rotating basis. And support groups are a chance for women who've been abused to come together and feel that they're less alone and some of the shame and secrecy is broken down. We have women in those groups who've experienced very bad physical violence, women who've had financial abuse, women who've had a lot of verbal and psychological abuse, and they all get together and work on healing. And then, of course, I offer individual counseling focused around trauma and healing from the abuse and sort of navigating spirituality within a Jewish lens after something atrocious like this has happened. And then the other services we provide are around navigating systems. Sometimes women have to go to court, they have to file police reports, they need to get on public benefits if they've lost a lot of income, and I'm available as a social worker to help navigating those systems. And lastly, we're lucky enough to have some capability to provide small grants of financial assistance for women who need money to start fresh, to heal from their abuse.
You know, you remind us that domestic violence is more than physical contact. It's more than hitting.
I hear from a lot of women that it's not really that bad, or I'm not sure I count as a domestic violence victim because he only hit me once. And that's really sad that that's a stereotype of what domestic violence is and who a victim is, because domestic violence is so much more. It's exerting power and control over someone. If you don't need to hit that person to control them, the batterer may never actually strike you, but it's still an abusive relationship.
Can you talk a little bit about the issues of confidentiality and the exquisite ways in which Shalom Bayit works in that way? Because among the many, many barriers for folks to call Shalom Bayit or any domestic violence help structure is the degree to which somebody can feel that they're not going to get suddenly a return phone call that might alert somebody to what they've done. People have a very reasonable concern about confidentiality and those kinds of issues. Can you talk a little bit about that piece of it from the Shalom Bayit perspective?
Confidentiality and safety are incredibly important to us. So we ask what women's names are or what callers' names are when they call us. No one ever has to provide a name if they don't feel comfortable with that. Also, when we ask for phone numbers in case we're returning a phone call, we always ask, is it safe to call you? Is it safe to leave a message and say who we are? Or would you like us to call and say something else? Perhaps we're calling with a medicine refill.
Thank you so much. Naomi, we have really honestly just a minute left, so I'm wondering if you'd like to add to whatever Sarah said, but also in particular I'm curious to know what you might say about what any individual might do to support this issue in general.
Sure. Well, I just want to say also that in the state of California, all domestic violence programs are protected under statewide confidentiality laws. So women should also know when they call us that we don't give out their names or information to anyone else, including law enforcement. And that, I think, is really important for people in order to feel safe to call.
Thank you.
But also, I think it's important for the community to know that what each person does matters in helping us to stop domestic violence in our society. So a few things that people can do are to listen and support and believe someone who tells you that they're being abused and connect them to services for help. Also, talk to our kids. Talk about how to have healthy friendships. That starts as soon as our kids can talk. And I think that's important throughout their lifetime so that they learn the skills to be able to have healthy relationships.
Thank you so much. Naomi and Sarah, we need to put a comma in the conversation. We can see that there's so much more to talk about. So please take this issue seriously and talk among yourselves. And thank you so much for being with us here on Mosaic.
Mike and Molly's back, chew the puppy.
Are you giving me kisses?
The final season of Mike and Molly returns CBS Monday.
One mad genius versus a team of geniuses.
He's crazier than ever.
This will not turn out well for you.
I love you, and I always will.
You're going to die today.
This is the Secretary of State.
It's everyone's worst nightmare.
What does jihadists want with explosives in Pakistan?
A new Madam Secretary. Then,
They sent us funeral flowers.
wedding bells
We're here.
are ringing. And alarm bells
Can we talk for a minute?
Can we talk later?
are going off.
Why is everything always secrets in this family?
Only 3 episodes remain.
This is in case we die tomorrow.
Oh my God.
A new Good Wife after Madam Secretary, CBS Tonight.
When I grow up, I want to be a ballerina because they get to dance all day for their job. They can stand on their tippy toes with fancy tutus and twirl around like magical princesses.
If your child is sick over and over again, it could be PI, a serious defect of the immune system. Early testing gives children a chance to dream.
I can't wait to grow up because then I will leap for the stars.
Visit us at info4pi.org.
Elementary, tonight at 10 on KPIX 5.
Pretty cool. Hi again, everybody. Welcome to Bay Sunday. I'm your host, Frank Malakote. Good to have you with us. On today's show, we have 3 dynamic nonprofit organizations and a photographer, jazz blogger that I think you're going to love. And, of course, a few plugs here. If you'd like to connect with us or pitch us a show idea, we'd love to hear from you. Go to cbssf.com, click on Connect, and we'll get you all the information, all the links to our email and social media, Facebook, Twitter, the works that you need to know. Now on to our first guest. He's been doing photography and writing about San Francisco Bay Area jazz since 2002. His photographs have been featured in various local publications, including the San Francisco Chronicle and the Visiting Oakland and Tourist Guide. And his jazz photography has been displayed in schools and